episode 7 of It Happened on the Job, the podcast for entertaining and relatable conversations with contractors. Today we got with us Charles Antis.
Yep, Charles Antis of Antis Roofing. How you doing, Charles? If you give us just kind of a quick intro of who you are and how you got started in the business that you are currently running.
Okay, yes. Thank you, Brian and Mike, for having me on the show. I was supposed to be there. You were going to make me coffee.
Yep, it's going to be a good coffee.
We are in the middle of a pandemic right
air
now.
High fives.
Pandemic. This is
or
how
we can do, coronavirus elbow bumps.
Yeah, this is the closest we can do that now from the new standard. I thank you. I'm Charles Antis, and I am the founder and CEO here at Antis Roofing and Waterproofing. It's been almost 31 years since the company was founded, and we exist in this HOA space in Southern California, from San Diego up to Malibu, and we keep HOA communities safe and dry, and we love it. We know the market well, and we have a thriving company. I don't know where else to go until you ask one question.
Totally
no,
fine.
that's perfect.
What got you thinking about roofing? What was it? Was it something that your dad did prior to this, or was it just like, hey, look, there's guys on the roof. That looks awesome.
Well, it's sort of like that. I grew up and I only knew labor as something that a man could sell. I grew up in a small town in Oregon, Myrtle Creek, Oregon, population 3,000. It was the timber capital of the world when I was a kid. So you worked in the plywood mills or you worked in the forest, and I did both. And so I always wanted to live in a bigger city. I was always embarrassed then that I was from a small town. Now I love it. But I wanted, in California, having gone to Disneyland a couple of times in our modest childhood, I thought I'd want to live there. And so when the opportunity came, when I was recruited for a job down there, I went to Southern California. It was actually to sell. And I hadn't had a job selling before. And I had sold a family something. I'm knocking on a door. I'd sold a family something. I went back to collect the check the next day, and they wouldn't speak to me. And the neighbor came out and accused me of cheating that family. And I looked at what I had sold them, and I decided, you know what? I think they're right. And I quit that job that night, and I looked for a job. And so the one skill I had was labor. I knew that I could do any job. And the only job that I saw in that market of labor, a restaurant, wasn't in my vocabulary that I could do something like that in my mind. So I showed up at this roofing company, and they hired me, and I started tearing off roofs. And this was back in the summer of 83, 84. And I learned that roofing was a very hard job, but I learned if I worked hard, I could rise up in a company, and I did. And I got to where I was running the construction for this small company that did a few million a year. And that's kind of when I realized I had something that I could do. And the thing that I could do is I could sniff out a leak. And really quick, I'll tell you how that developed. I went out to do a leak because he sent me out there, and I really wanted the admiration of the boss of this company. His name was Tim Curtis. He's still around, and I wanted his admiration. And he went up on a roof with me afterwards, and I said, hey, I think I got the leak, and I had sealed it. I found it around this coping, and I put the coping back. And the coping is that metal that caps the wall. And there's a rule in waterproofing that everything above overlaps everything below, like feathers on a duck's back. But I put that coping back. I put the top piece on first. I put the bottom piece on after. So therefore, it was bucking water, and water could run down that coping and go right into the thing. So Tim goes up on that roof, and he looks at that, and he says, you know what? That's not going to work. You have that backwards lap. And he gave me the whole duck analogy. And right then I got the duck analogy. I got it. Everything above. I was so embarrassed. I never forgot that. And from that day on, every time something leaked, I took it apart, and I thought of myself like a bead of water, how it would get through on a duck's back or on the components of this roof or wall. And that's how I got great at doing repairs, because I blew the first one, and I was called out on it in a good way. He gave me the solution, and he was very curious, and I became curious about roofing then, and I've always been curious about this profession. And so we've been very innovative in what we've created since that time. But the reason I started my company was this guy that I learned so much from just, had one of those slow periods, didn't have enough work. He was doing some vacationing, and I just had enough side work to get by. And I decided one day it was easier to please these few people than to please all of the clients of this company. And I started my small company right then. just solving leaks in the HOA market. Give me the leak that no one else can repair. I'll do it for free. And then you'll know that I'm great at this. And then you'll trust me to pay me for repairing other leaks. And in the beginning, I truly didn't even have the capacity to do a re-roof. So people are considering re-roofs for $1 million. I could not compete for that. I did not have the crews or the kettles. So I learned that I could compete with that. If they were going to buy a new roof to get 20 years, but I can get them 10 more years on their existing roof for $100,000. So I started doing these comprehensive maintenances that we call special operations. And that's where we go in and dissect problems and rebuild the bad areas to let the good areas last as long as they can. And that's where we really started being innovative in how we brought solutions to roofing that didn't fill landfills with roofing product. And that's one of the reasons we're strong today, because we push maintenance more than re-roofing. Even though re-roofing is our biggest category because there's so many projects we service, we always push getting all of the usable life out of a roof. I don't know why I went off on so many curves there. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. No, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it shows, in my opinion, and probably yours as well, why you've grown to where you've grown. I mean, you're not the guy out there selling the $1 million jobs because you can. You're finding another solution for them that may be a little bit more cost effective, where they can trust you. And
well, there's this thing in roofing, and with all my roofing comrades across the country, I'm on the National Roofing Contractor Association board and the Roofing Alliance board. But there is this propensity for us to want to have that picture of us up on the stadium that we re-roofed, and I kind of get why that is. It's kind of a conquering image and feeling in it, but really, Anaheim Stadium, the Honda Center, they were about ready to get a new roof, and it was like it was really $2 million if they were going with the lowest cost. This one was $2 to $3 million, and we went up there and thought, well, gosh, it's just all your drains that are filling. There's like 80 drains. We rebuild the area around your drains. I can get at least 10 to 15 more years out of this PVC, and so we did it for $100,000. That's the job I want. I want to do an article on. We just haven't got around to it. But there's a great article there. There was no waste, and they saved money, and they're dry. And so there's the new story that's going to become sexy to tell in the roofing industry. And what's really cool is I think even some of the great the manufacturers are that push product are. I think a lot of them are being socially responsible and looking at that too.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure you probably have quite a few season ticket holders that are thanking you on that as well.
Right
Myself
there.
included, yeah.
Yes, well, ourselves included. Yeah, we actually are bummed. The Honda Center is such a great partner. We had like 4 contracts with them. We did their roof. We did a study with some students about the savings on that roof, a capstone study. We also have a contract where we've had a suite with them for the last 6 years that we donate to all these nonprofits. And then we also have a contract with them that we donate 20,000 seats, 4 whole sections at every hockey game during the year to nonprofits who otherwise people couldn't go, and their stakeholders who wouldn't be able to go to a hockey game. And so they're a great organization, and I just had to throw that in there. So they make a lot of really socially responsible solutions. Right now, in the end, they're building out Orange County and plans like in LA Live, but what they're doing right now in the moment is they're mobilizing their facility for bringing food to people that are experiencing food scarcity, people that can't get food right now in this epidemic. So they are amazing partners, and I was bummed that our contract or that the season ended just because I got to go there and see all the good they were doing. So I think that's a real awesome thing right now is the companies that are doing things, moving the dial forward, because we're likely going to need that today more than ever. We don't even have the capacity, most of us, myself included, to catch up to the economy of things as it's shifting right now in so many ways. Just not even economy, just the economy of how we do business. This right here,
we're
supposed to have the coffee, but this right here is becoming a new normal. I just heard Zoom stock is zooming. It makes sense. and I'm getting better at Zoom. This is the first time I've done Zoom where I'm not going to have to touch my screen every 3 minutes to lose it, because my nephew just came in and showed me how to lock my screen. So I'm a metaphor for everybody who's shifting toward technology. We've been heavily invested in technology for 12 years. All of my techs in the field had iPads 12 years ago, but honestly, I was wondering why it was so inefficient. But right now in the moment, I've got this huge 20,000 square foot office with like 3 or 4 people here. The rest of them from their homes operating remotely. And we're sending the texts from their homes remotely. We're not having any contact with the clients, only photos. We're able to really operate efficiently because we had rain here finally and keep folks dry. We've had 400 leak calls in the last few weeks, and we've been able to service them in a safe way because we have invested beforehand in technology. And right now, for the first time, I'm feeling paid back.
It's actually working, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome. Go ahead.
What's that?
No, I think Brian had something.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to steer back. I'm actually enthralled and very intrigued by the fact that you guys are so, and maybe it's a result of you, Charles, but you're so involved in the community. And I said, if you go to your website, you have over 40 different nonprofit groups that you sponsor or at least work with in some capacity. But then I see it on LinkedIn. You're at these events, you're shaking hands, you're speaking, you're just talking with people. What got you started down that road? Is that just a part of the fabric of Charles Antis, or was
that a conscious decision at some point, or?
Well, there's a lot to unpack to get there. But I'll try to get it without going too deep in any one area. We're all different. We all have different personalities, and yet in the systems we grow up in, and not intentionally, the families, the societies, the religions, the political parties, the physical locations, we become who we're supposed to be, and it's hard to know who you truly are. And sometimes people are lucky enough to have sometimes a crisis or whatever that gets them to transcend to something who they really are. And I think I've had some of that in my life by trying to be everything everybody else wanted me to be unintentionally. And I think that what I'd say to that is I've done a lot of assessments, and I hugely recommend for anybody, whether you can comprehend the value or not, to experiment with assessments, whether it's a DISC, D-I-S-C, or a Myers-Briggs, or a Strength Finders, or the Emotional Intelligence Assessment, one of those, or the Imperative Purpose Lab, or I could go on, the love language, any type of self-assessments that basically says you're not the same as everybody else. You are uniquely you. And if you can figure you out, you'll figure your body out like it's a violin, and you'll know how to play it. I have ADD, and I didn't even know I had ADD until I was 50, and I'm 57 now. And it's like, God, what's wrong with me? How come these people can follow this and I can't? But once I learned that I had ADD and I figured my body out, I've learned how to master my ADD, which means I use it to my advantage. Like, I'm a marketing expert. One of the reasons I'm a marketing expert is because I have ADD. I can't notice things. I can't go in deep. So my brain has to see it in a tenth of a second. So I have an expert eye at catching color theory, at catching slogans, at catching logos, at catching the eye glance, those things. And it's not intentional. I just learned to master who I am. So there's the value in knowing who you are. And I'll go one step deeper. When you know who you are, if you're a DISC personality assessment says, if you're an animal going to survive in the jungle, this is my interpretation, so it's not entirely accurate. But
not sponsored by DISC here. No.
This is DISC people truest may not love this, but DISC lovers will love this, I think. And if you're an animal in the jungle, you're going to survive one of 4 ways. You're going to be dominant, alpha male, I will crush all other lions. You're going to be popular, that's the I. D is the dominant. I is the I is the popular. If I'm popular and all other animals like me, they won't kill me. Or you're S, that means you're going to stay middle of the pack. If I'm middle of the pack, I won't get killed. Or you're cautious, C. That's the last one. If you're cautious, I only travel at dusk. All of us are animals surviving in the business world, and we have one dominant personality, almost all of us, and we have a second lighter one. As once I understood that my dominant personality is that I need to be popular, it changed everything, because I forgave myself for always being silly and having that class clown mentality when I was younger. I forgave myself for all that. I understood it. I allowed myself to be great in marketing, to be great in customer care. Why? Because I care what everybody thinks. And I learned to master myself. So DISC is a small example, but when I did the Imperative Purpose Lab in Seattle, I really got to know myself because I found out why I don't manage well. I'm like Seagull Boss, like flap, flap, flap and shitting on people. I found out why I don't tutor well. When I was tutoring my daughter math, who's now 21, when she was young, I said, I was trying to help her and I said, Allie, you'll be the only one in the class that doesn't understand this. And she started crying and she pointed at me and she said, Dad, you're mean. And I was, and I've never forgiven myself for that until I did the imperative assessment. And it says basically this. I worked out with these amazing CEOs from groups, and it was the Carnival Cruise Line's HR director that was in my pod. And he said, Charles, you're not a tutor. You're not a manager. You are an ambassador. You live to ignite passion in others for social change. And I hit that. I go, what? What'd he say? And I was embarrassed. I was in this group. I wasn't getting what I was getting. And after 4 days in Seattle, they hit me with it again. And I tried that on. And once I tried that on, I stopped trying. I started putting better managers around me. I started getting better tutors around me to the people around me. And I started to ignite passion in my people for change. I started to ignite passion in those in my industry for social change because I did an assessment that got me there. So with me, once I understood, I never thought I liked to speak because I couldn't stay on topic until I found out what fulfills me. And when I found out what fulfills me, right after I learned that I needed to ignite passion in others for social change, and I put that on, it was the CEO of Phantom Cruise Lines, which is part of the Carnival fleet, who was there, and she said, "Charles, you don't need I said, "I need a coach. I don't know how to talk. I need a speech coach. I have this keynote coming up." And she says, "No, you don't need a keynote coach. You don't need a speech coach. You need a storytelling coach." I thought, what's a storytelling coach? I pictured like an old gold miner with a golden tooth and a jug, and no, it's this guy that grew in Silicon Valley, and he works in the travel industry, and he teaches us that nobody hears anything unless they tell it in story. And I hired Jay Golden as my storytelling coach, and this guy taught me that nobody can remember data. Stop spouting data. Blah. Tell them a story. That's the only thing that can shift their brain to context where they can comprehend something in a whole new way. So all I do now is I tell stories, and I don't waste people's time dropping names or with bullshit. I tell them stories that helped us change from point A to point B with real intent, giving it to them as something valuable that they might use to change in a similar pattern. And when I broke that down to stop wasting people's time with dropping names and bullshit, which is not what Jay Golden says, but it's what he says, that's what I do. If I go to speak in a room, and I love to speak, I love to do podcasts, I get to do this every week. When I go to a room and speak, and there's a person, whether it's a kid, especially if it's a kid, and he's looking at his cell phone, and man, I want so bad to awaken him in that moment. And not for my own ego. No, sure, that's there. I have to acknowledge it. But it's really for that kid. Like, oh my God, if I could let him see what I couldn't see till I was 50, and he's 13, and I can tell he's hard on himself, and I don't know why he is, but if I could get him to see himself from that point right there higher than he ever saw himself before, and then from that point forward, always higher than he ever did, then that is like, I don't know why I get emotional, but that is what I live for. It's to awaken people to see themselves higher, and then together we can do more. And I don't know why I get emotional. I don't, because I'm not a religious guy, because I grew up religious. So I'm just very universal in how I feel. I feel like we're all connected. So there is a religious component. If you look back at ancient religion, go back 7,000 years, they all kind of come and hum from this oneness theory. We're all one. You can't resent anyone. You're resenting your own body. And I don't want to get into any religious talk. I apologize for that. But there is a oneness component to how I feel. It's like I'm religious, except that every single person is a member of my religion and nobody's left out. And so my language always has to be all inclusive, not out of fear of any God, because I don't believe in a punishing God theory. I think that's the greatest thing that I took up from my child, I took away from my childhood. But I do believe that we're all one. And in business, if you look at it that way, that gives you power today because your people can tell, and right now in the scary times, we're looking at like our business as a family, and it's so far we're okay. So anyway, yeah. I got deep there.
No, that's crazy. That's what's funny is you touch on so much stuff, and it's great, and it's obviously clear. I mean, we're 15 minutes into this. I mean, it's clear why you are where you are from a business standpoint. I mean, you're bringing in people that you're motivating, that believe in you. I want to go work for you right now. I'm about to go resign and just come work for you. I just want to sit
plenty of space.
I just want to sit in the office and listen to you talk all day, right? So I mean, I feel like it doesn't, roofing would insert anything. Like I feel like you're going to be successful, and I mean, not to just put you on more of a pedestal than I know you already put yourself on. Yeah, no, but I mean, I think it's awesome to listen to. Just kind of touching back on the disc and some of the other assessment stuff, just because the guys here are pretty big on Enneagram. Have you? This is way off topic. We're going way sidebar, but these guys are huge on Enneagram. Is that something that you've looked into at all, just out of curiosity?
Say, how do you pronounce that?
Is it Enneagram?
Enneagram. ENNEAGRAM. Enneagram.
So it's.
I don't think I'm familiar with it.
Oh my gosh! You want to talk about going down a rabbit hole?
It's a deep assessment tool.
Yeah. It's there's 1 through 8. It's kind of the same. Everybody gets a number 1 through 8, and it's kind of the same type of thing. But it's your leading number, and then your fight or flight number when you're being aggressive or being forward, or you have to get into that mentality. Which number are you? And then when you're in the defensive, what number are you? It's
so it's really playing with your emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
it's letting you. It's creating self-awareness, which is all about emotional intelligence.
Yeah. So I feel like I just gave you something. Yeah. If you've got nothing to do while you're in quarantine here for the next month and a half, probably.
Sure. I love assessments. I do love assessments. I love about assessments, almost all of them, well, some of them are a lot more, but a lot of them, you can take them and it's like, this is my impersonation of the DISC assessment. You take, or even a deeper tool, you'll take 10 to 20 multiple choice questions. And the questions like this, like you're driving down the road and you see a kitten. You'll either A, drive by and could give an F, or 2, you'll pull over and see if you can help it, or 3, you will call animal services and you're like, what does this tell about me? And I say A or whatever, and then you ask your 20 questions, and then they give you this assessment, and you're like, okay, what's this? And you're like, oh shit. Whoa, who'd you talk to? Who'd you talk to? And boy, that is an opening of your mind into the way things really are. That when you can get some self-awareness around it, that my self-awareness tells me this today, and this is just I'm exaggerating, but I'm not right. I'm right maybe just 51% of the time. Hopefully I'm wrong half the time. And when I'm right, I might be right only for the short term, or generally I play the long game, so I'm probably right for the long term. But my ego wants me to be right in the moment, but I'm often wrong. And I just, once I got that point, like I may be wrong, it gives me such power, because I used to crush everyone around me without realizing it, because I had the biggest voice in the room with my personality. I was CEO, and I never allowed any innovation around me. I would crush it. In my level of innovation, the things that I plan entirely on my own, I mean, they're just not logistically thought out well, so it's just an interesting thing when you can get a level of self-awareness, and when you can give it to those around you, and not everybody can get it. Was a lot of protections that people have with themselves, but I believe that my job every day with everyone is to help them see themselves a little higher and a little better. And I usually stay in tune with that. I generally don't criticize, because it comes out the opposite of that. It's like if we talk about politics, it would just sound like vomit, and no one would want to listen to it. So, yeah.
Well, and kind of jumping on what Mike said earlier, I think, and even kind of wrapping this portion up, I feel like it's kind of what I thought initially, is that the the requirement or the need for you to go out and help others it's a fabric of you. And I think that's probably the most attractive thing. I feel like it hits so many different sectors, whether it's because it's more important than just business. It's more important than finances and money. You're talking about people's needs, whether it's the need for love or acceptance, because all those things, I think, and I know Mike and I deal with that, and I'm sure you do, Charles, on a daily basis, whether you're at home or you're coming into work or you're in the car, those are things that dominate the mindset. And so I think for people that feel less than, it sounds like you have this desire to help them. And I think that's so attractive. I think that, and kind of even another thing I saw with just this culture within your company, because it is, like you mentioned before, especially with this, and we haven't really mentioned it yet, we've kind of implied it, but we're in the coronavirus pandemic. We're in the midst of that right now. So we are trying to practice social distancing as best as we can within the confines of this video. But then the fact that we're apart from each other, but people are so concerned right now. I think there's some really cool things that are happening. There's, in our neighborhood, we have people that are coming out that I've never met before, and very cool people, kids playing out who've never met each other, and they're playing out in the streets again like it was when I was a kid, but people are becoming like people. But I think the other side of it is the fear of, how am I going to get through next month if I'm not working now? And so maybe if you could just kind of talk about, so I'm giving you some I'm giving you some footballs. I mean, there's a lot here that we can unpack, but
sure.
Specifically,
Okay.
I want to talk about your culture and the people that have come in to work with you, but maybe also talk about some of the fears that they're experiencing, especially right now with what's happening with the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, there's it's an interesting time. So I think we need to establish the fact of something that we've always done here at Antis Roofing, and we didn't talk about it until the last 10 years, but we could never let anybody have a leaky roof just because they didn't have the money to pay. And I'll say that again because I think it's substantial. We could never let anybody have a leaky roof just because they couldn't pay for it. And we ended up donating roofs a lot, and I don't want to tell the long version, but it started in that first year I started my business, and one of the calls I got was a lady had leaks in every room, and I was excited as I drove to the house the next day. But as I got closer to the home, which was near LAX, the homes were getting smaller, more disheveled, and finally I turned on the street where the home would be, and I just see this dead grass home set back, and and I showed up and knocked on the door because Dad said you always show up, and I do. I knocked on that door, and three things happened that really steered the course of my life. Didn't know it then, but the door opened, and I saw this tired face of this middle-aged woman, which just made me recoil. But as I was about to say hello, I was hit with the smell of mildew that just knocked me over, like, oh my God. And then I'm getting out of here. How am I going to go? As I start to turn, I feel a tug at my finger, and I look down, and there's this little 6-year-old blonde girl with the ear-to-ear smile, and she's just like, she doesn't smell anything. She's got a visitor in her home. You could tell there was a lot of visitors. She doesn't know her home's about to be condemned. And I walk inside this crowded living room because she's pulling me into this undersized hallway, and she turns right into this little room. And I know it's her room because she points to this My Little Pony poster on the wall. And as she's pointing there, looking, my eyes are drawn down, and I see 4 mattresses with disheveled, moldy bedding. And I realize, that's where her and her siblings sleep. And that froze me. I was just frozen. I couldn't move because I couldn't help. This was overwhelming to me. I needed to go make money for my family. I had a mortgage payment in 2 weeks. I had a little girl at home to feed, and I couldn't do anything. I was frozen until the mom walked in again. And I don't know why it was her face and not the little girl's, but when I saw the mom's face again with that look, it was like something welled in me. It's like, I'm going to take care of your roof. And that's the first time that I remember ever saying that. we went up on the roof, and it was like, God, the roof was shot, needed a whole new roof. But I remember wondering when I said that, like, oh, like I remember I wanted to grab those words back, because I remember saying, can I, will I? I mean, how can I? But yet, I got 6 volunteers, didn't have any employees yet. I got 6 volunteers. I went to Home Depot, I got some crude materials, and we gooped on a roof that kept that family dry, and they stayed in that house. And that ended up being a story I started telling not till 10 years ago or so. But that story became a metaphor for who we were. We had a skill. That was, like if we were a doctor on an airplane, and that was my doctor on an airplane moment, there was a family that needed service now, and we had the ability to help her at a lesser cost, because that was my profession, that was my trade, even though I wasn't the greatest yet. But I think that willingness to always try to do the right thing has always been a big part of this company. Not always because we were, maybe saintly or trying to do it, but because we felt we had to, but we always tried to build the right thing. And I think there was something powerful in that over time. And I think that metaphor still, right now we're going into the coronavirus, and Antis donates a lot of roofs. Like you mentioned, we donate to over 40 nonprofits roofing, all of the local Habitat roofs we have for 10 years. I've been on the board for Habitat for Humanity. We also donate all the Ronald McDonald House roofs. I'm on the board for local Ronald McDonald House. Why does that work? It works because right now, before the coronavirus, the world's shifting so fast. In the trades, it's tough to survive anyway. And all of a sudden, people all of a sudden today need to know who you are and what you stand for. It's not enough that you're just this roofer and you do this. It's not enough that you went to this college. It's like, who are you? How are you affiliated? And that's what really shows up on your LinkedIn profile. So if you're a volunteer at an organization like Habitat for Humanity, people understand something in you, especially if they love that brand too. And most people do love Habitat. And people that love Habitat, whether they pin their finger on it or not, what they love is this concept that they believe that everybody deserves a decent place to live. Yeah. And so what you do is the emotional brain, the animal brain, we're talking about emotional intelligence, it aligns. It's not a conscious thing. It's a subconscious, way more powerful than a conscious thing. If those people that understand Ronald McDonald House, that smile when they see that family being close to their kid, they believe that it is unimaginable to ignore sick children. And so again, the animal brain locks into that. So that's before the coronavirus. Now, justification for continuing this path during the coronavirus. And I'm going to tell you a story that happened 2 nights ago. And I don't know why it's emotional, because it's not an emotional story. It's just, it's emotional because I think when I recognize something is powerfully true in the moment, it becomes emotional to me. And it's about my spa guy, Nick. Nick's been my spa guy not that long. And, and spa guys, it's an interesting relationship, how spa guys are, And so Nick shows up this week during the coronavirus, which just made it awkward too, because I didn't even ask the question, but I'm wondering, I'm glad I have a spa to go into. My children are using it. And he kind of was talking to me. Nick was talking to me, and he has a very small company. I'm not, that's how my company was when I started, but it's got to be, I would say, way under $1 million. I'm just guessing. And it's a very small company. Right now, he's facing uncertainties. I'm sure he's not servicing all his accounts. He's 15 feet away from me. I walked outside. He doesn't even make full eye contact with me. That's probably kind of what's going on in the moment. Like we act different socially. And he said, listen, he goes, I was thinking about you and your kids and what it must be like right now. And I brought something for you. And he pulled out a little inner tube blow up for my daughter and a little ball for my son. And it just touched me, and it's not that I don't like Nick, but Nick's the spa guy. But man, I got a story about Nick now. I'll never forget that he went out of his way in the moment and had a marketing spend, which was substantial for him. And I bet he's doing it everywhere. And I took that story and I gave it to my management team. And I go, wow, we have to show up right now at all these homes. And even though we're not having contact with them, it's invasive and they're scared. And what can we do? And now we're scrambling so we can do something like Nick. And I heard another podcast the other day where somebody was talking about not spending anything on marketing. And let me tell you something. This is the time that you need to spend it more than ever. And you're going to be spending it for a future gain, but we're going to watch a lot of small businesses go under. And I hate to say that, but it always happens. In the roofing business, the trend in the last 10 years has been 3 out of 5 fail every 3 years. it's going to be a higher fail rate now. But those that stay connected, those that spend, and those that try to innovate and adapt in the moment are going to thrive. And one of the ways you do that is by staying plugged into your community. And so I believe I'm not, honestly, Ansys Roofing, we have a donor advised fund. So we're able to take pre-tax money from previous years and set it up so we'll be able to give this year. Our plan this year was not to give more than 2 to 3% of our gross, which is a lot of money. But, we're a $20 million company, 2 or 3% would be $600,000, or
Yeah.
my math may be off. But we're probably going to give a lot more. Why? Because we can. Because we have that donor advised fund. Why? Because we're about to walk through the biggest economic challenge that our community is ever going to face. And we're going to see more people hungry and more people without. We're going to, I don't want to predict that. I'm not a doomer and gloomer, but I know that we're going to have challenges. And so my point is our marketing spend and our cause spend and the way we talk about it's going to go up. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I went and drove food to seniors in my community who don't have enough because they can't get food to them and they're sheltered. And so when I had that experience, it was powerful. And you know what? That helps my brand and my company, but it was a couple hours of my time. And by that, people know me. People understand it. I just did that the other day, and I did it because I wanted to help. And now there's a national platform doing a story on it, and I love that. I love it because it gets eyes on the problem. I love it because it gets eyes on all of us too, and it brings. And the roofing industry, as a lot of trades do, we do so much. I'm not the only roofer that donates roofs to keep people dry. In fact, every roofer I know does that. We're just organizing today and creating strength by being organized. And one of the things we're telling people is to learn how to talk about your good. And if you want to know how to talk about the good that you're doing, watch me. I'm an expert there. I don't like to call myself an expert, but I am an expert there. I sit on the social platforms of a dozen boards just to help in messaging. That's my expertise. And I make and the reason I'm an expert is I make a lot of mistakes, but I know where you can afford to make mistakes. And right now you have to talk about how to make things better, and you have to get involved. Last thing I'd say is, get involved right now and show up at wherever. The NRCA is very involved. Reed Ribble, former congressman, is our CEO. He's amazing. He's doing almost daily podcasts, and we're paying attention. And I'm saying those that pay attention are going to be the ones that survive. On Monday, they announced the NRCA is going to do this dial-in wherever one dials in. I've been a bunch of dial-ins and a bunch of spaces right now. And honestly, it's really hard for my brain to grab this new context, but I'm totally doing it. I am totally involved. I am all in, and I am learning as I go on exactly how to do this. But my point was this. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Are you getting video from me right now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't tell. My point is, on Monday, the NRCA is doing this thing, and my point is this. I'm going to guess there's going to be 430 roofing contractors that sign in. It'll be somewhere between 100 and 1,000. I don't know. But my point is this: though, if there's 430, 80% of those will still be around through whatever we're going through, because you have to stay plugged in. You've got, we have small companies. How do you get in line? Like right now, what's a work furlough? I don't know, but I have 2 people in my management team that understand what a work furlough is, and we're signing up for it as soon as we need it with our employees. We're also filling out apps for the SBA loans right now. I don't think the 0 interest loan that they're talking about is available yet, but we have another low interest loan. We're signing up for all these loans. We're collecting our money because there's a lot of people that won't be able to pay in a week. So I'm calling them right now for money. So there's a lot of things that we can do. And the only reason I know to do that, because I don't think of these things all on my own, is I plug into these social channels. RT3's been doing a weekly podcast. I think they're doing one today in the roofing industry. It's Roofing Technology Think Tank. And it's just some people like myself that are on the board across the country that are showing up and talking about what they're doing in the moment, how to be a leader in the moment. I learned, I felt a lot better after watching that last week when I saw Steve Little, and who's a great contractor friend in Dallas, and I saw Ken Kelly in Florida, and I'm watching them reassure me that the most important thing I can do in the moment right now is to look strong for my team and strong for my community. I have to be the voice of reason. When the panic goes, what are we going to do? My job is to say, okay, let's pause. And the reason I know that is I stay plugged in. And there's a big opportunity for us right now to survive and to thrive. The advantage, try to see the advantages and then get ahead of it. But you think about it, this is going to create a fascinating opportunity for technology. The technology, like we said, that we've been investing in that's never worked, right now is working. It's going to forever change the way we do business, and that's not all bad. We have to look at the good in it. There's a lot of opportunity in that. And so I think that's the main thing I have to tell those baby boomers that are my age is, my God, you have to be adaptive. Adaptive in your messaging. If you're not on social media yet, this is the time. You are completely unplugged. So get your son, your nephew, your neighbor. They'll do it. This kid over here, I know it's going to scare you, but let's get you started and just have you do the basics. You have to plug it.
Everybody's into social, so everybody's under the microscope right now, just because everybody has time to be staring into those fish bowls, right? Like that's what everybody's doing right now.
Look at us. We know each other through LinkedIn. It's like it's a mall community in my mind now. I don't understand any other platform, but in that platform, I'm well known in certain malls across the country.
Waving to people locally as you walk by, as they see
Thank
you.
God. Thank God I'm there. I have an outlet. If I was trying to figure it out right now, I'd be frustrated. But thank God I decided to get involved there a year or so ago. And that's how we know each other. That's how most of a lot of my social media stuff just originates from these relationships. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It balances me out.
Going back to the technology piece and kind of going back into the business, I mean, I have my own opinions on how this is going to change. And when I say this, I just mean the situation that we're in. And I mean, I think you have the technology. We were very tech forward too. I mean, it was easy for us last Monday to tell everybody, hey, go home, figure it out. We've got it all figured out. We've been paperless, all that works. And it sounds like you have too. And I feel like this situation is forcing a lot of the industry, multiple industries, to figure that out and get that way. Where do you see your guys' I don't know, the way you do business? How much of this that you're doing right now do you see going forward once? Because I can't imagine you're going to revert back to the way you were doing things 3 weeks ago when everything was fine and dandy, and now flash forward to 6 months from now when everything's fine. How much of what you're doing now do you see staying as part of what you do, and maybe downsizing an office or hiring people remote or anything along those lines?
That's a great question. I think that's the way you ask that question is more, I'm in curiosity mode. I'm not in answer mode there, but I follow you. It's like, what's working, what's not working. And I have two theories that are going to occur on that. There's going to be two things going to happen. One of them is the human component. And in our company, everybody's fully all 35 of our office positions are working full time right now. There's been no cutbacks at all. But let's be honest and look forward a year from now. If you look at any industry, there's going to be shrinking, like you said. So if our company, especially if the company shrinks because of coronavirus type stuff, like a lot of companies will the year, and we are planning that potential strategy where we don't know, there's a lot of I don't knows, then it makes sense that we're going to have less employees. And I don't say that because I'm an employee person first. I'll be sad if anybody leaves, but I'm just looking at it from a 30,000 foot view. So what that means is right now there's a really great opportunity when all of a sudden all your employees are working remote. It's going to be really clear to notice when we get back together again who was effective. And then there's going to be so much learning in that, but there's also going to be consequences. People will self-select out, even in a tight job market too, when they notice that. I'm saying that's the human casualty component that will occur. But then there's the technology component that's really exciting. And that is, as we'll notice the people that really excel in this, we're going to notice those technology pieces that really excel. Like, and some of them, and we're going to notice the ones that really didn't work well, even though they're supposed to work. And I don't know what those are yet. I really don't. And if I try to assign it, I'll steer it. And so I'm asking the questions, but not hard, because I don't want my managers asking it hard yet. I don't want anybody being overly scrutinized right now, because my initial plan is, if we have a lot of rain this year, then all our people are fine. Rain in the last recession, which this could be worse than, but in the last recession, we had 2 rainy years and Antis Roofing great years. And so the economy of rain, when you're selling in the HOA market, is the most critical component. But anyway, I got off track there. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah. I forgot what your question was now.
No, just, I mean, I'm curious. And again, I don't know that you have an answer or anyone has an answer, just more your thought, just kind of how, what the business is going to look like, down the road.
Yeah.
Do you foresee yourself? I mean, like you said, you've got a 20,000 square foot building and you've only got 3 people in there and you're running at, I would imagine, probably not 100% efficiency, but it's got to be pretty close. I mean,
well,
there's overhead in that building.
Yes. It's impossible that I would have to just guess at people offsite without and I have no knowledge of anybody underperforming or systems working, but I would say we're probably at 65% capacity. I mean, really, I would just say that the loss of information, we might be getting by, and maybe we're higher, but I'm just trying to have a realistic expectation going in. But yes, I totally do see that. This is going to change everything. Everyone's going to be considering, but there's also the added value of being together in an environment. I don't think we're ready to abandon that if we can. But
I think that's part of the underlying.
When we look at our next space, we'll look at it differently.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the underlying of my question. I didn't really want to bring it up, but I'm glad that you did. But I think that part of who you are and what you've built there, I don't know that that's something that you want to escape or abandon is that family and that togetherness that you guys have created.
We've also done a lot of experimenting with offsite in the last few years. I'm glad we have, and we've learned that we would rather have them here. There's a lot of reasons for that. Also, the human condition, we need that work family and people's. If I was working at home with my ADD, I might be the worst worker here. I just don't know. There's so many other factors. So anyway, it's been fascinating to look forward. Yeah, everything's going to change, permanent changes. But I'm just more that, okay, this is when you really have to be adaptive, but don't assign how that's going to look yet. I think that we're just going to, the effectiveness of Zoom is one of my pleasant surprises. The fact that the internet hasn't crashed is another pleasant surprise, at least in a way that's affected me in a big way. There's a lot of fascinating things that we're learning right now. And there's going to be some good news stories, but I also, the realist in me is creating, we just did futurist. The new business strategy, you don't plan it every 2 to 5 years. You plan it every 6 months. And you create contingency plans. Disney right now is one of the only companies that I know personally where their senior HR directors have a black swan strategy. They have a good economy, a bad economy, and a black swan economy. They already know what they're doing right now because they just updated it within the last 6 months. Where Antis, we don't. We've talked about it, but we've never done that. But our VP of Finance, Audrey Schneider, she's been working really hard creating that. And now we just created a strategy with our sales drop from 20 million down to 13 million, which we see as possible if we get rolled out for 3 months. And how that would affect us. And there's some drastic losses there if we don't create a mechanism to carve down. And so we're looking at that right now. It is very possible. I was on a call with some very big VPs, about 60 people calling in, and one of the social experts that are talking about what could happen is talking about not moving into the Great Recession. And this is I don't want to be a doomsdayer, but I see the potential and I just want to have a realist side of me.
It's real, yeah.
But we can't comprehend this yet. But the impact of what's going to happen with job loss, and everything else is it's going to look more like the Great Depression. Now, I can't comprehend that. And I don't see it that way because I'm more of I see all the opportunity way. But I think I also have to prepare quickly. 2 years ago, we had a bad year and we didn't adjust quick enough. If we're having a bad year this year, and it's obvious there, we're lining up for every loan we can get. We're trying to understand the work furlough program. We're doing everything we can to set ourselves up to survive. It makes sense to me that if the government if it's able to do as it plans, it's going to give us the ability to bail out of this for a while. Kind of like when I toured Houston after the big hurricane a few years ago with the U.S. Chamber. I toured it. It was devastating, but they have a 10-year plan to dig out of it. 10 years? It's horrible, but at least they're optimistic in a 10-year plan. It's like
Right.
we're gonna have, if the government's able to, we're gonna have a bailout plan where we have years to pay back, and some of it even forgiven. I don't know how the economy can afford that, and that's the other concern there. But we're lining up to protect our people to get every possible perk we can, and we've done a lot of pre-planning. We have our own donor advised fund. We're partially self-insured, so we're able to tackle where we could technically release some of the surplus of the insurance to bleed back into the company. I just learned in the roofing business, you have to put everything back into the company to be more flexible. And that's how I've survived for 31 years. But it's an interesting time. And I just think that we want to, we got to spend money on marketing, just like Nick, the pool guy. We've got to continue to get our name out there. And if you're able to help. That's what people are going to remember. And, and I have a lot of quotes around giving. We don't ever give too much. I've so many times I've given money way out of my league to give. I mean, it feels like you're ripping a rib out of me is the best way I can describe it. And then I wake up and the universe shifts and everything lines out and we grow. And so if you have the ability to give your skill to someone else to help them out, whether it's driving food or patching their roof, it is a beautiful thing to give that out. And today it's a good thing to talk about it, because when you talk about it with some degree of humility and telling the story of other people, that's how it grows. And that's how and to a lot of baby boomer friends of mine, no, I'll do it. I'll give a roof, but God, we're not going to talk about it. Like, no, dude, we're going to talk about it, because we don't talk about it. How does it grow? How do more people come? And I had to teach myself that, because I never talked about it until 10 years ago, until it was Habitat for Humanity started talking about it. They said, Just Roof It, donating roofs and transforming lives. And I was like, are we going to by lightning?
We're really going to put that on a billboard?
You can't write that. And then we eventually wrote it ourselves. And it was hard to say in the beginning. And now there's a trend where if you really back it up and you really do it, and everyone knows we really do it, we can talk about it. And we talk about it to set social trends and change industry. And we've been able to do that. And I love that. I love giving everybody a happier day. There's an unfulfilled workforce. 70% of the population around the world thinks work is a drudgery. It's not fulfilling. Imagine if you could flip that from only 30% satisfied to 60 to 70% completely fulfilled. That's kind of what I see work at. A work is a way we can reach people to awaken them to how fucking awesome they are. Pardon my French.
No,
that's kind of the
your French.
You got to remember, we're catering to contractors here. You're totally okay there. Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of reaching our time limit here, and I want to say, obviously, thank you for bringing it on. I mean, personally, I think our biggest takeaway, especially for the guys listening, guys and girls listening, not everyone can be you, right? I mean, you are unique in your own way and what you've done to grow, but knowing who you are and using that knowledge to its fullest. I think is what's key there, because like I said, I mean, there's plenty of people that we talk to that own construction companies that are not going to be able to replicate what you've done here or are going to be comfortable doing it. But I'm sure there's something else in their personality that they can exploit to be successful.
I agree.
Well, Charles, just to wrap up, maybe if you could just tell everybody where they can find you, whether it's on the interwebs or on a social media platform.
Yeah. I'm really active on LinkedIn. Charles Antis on LinkedIn. And my company's active on LinkedIn too, but LinkedIn's the place that I'll spend time talking on. I'll respond. I've learned how to think in that term. I'm not personally active on other channels. My wife's active. She shows our family pictures on her Facebook, Dawn Antis. I don't know if she wants me inviting people to it. I think she's private. But then our company, Antis Roofing, we're on all 5. We have like 5 channels, and we're pretty active, and they'll replicate a lot of the stuff that I do. But I have a little oversight into what they do. We try to keep it separate but complementary. But I love it when you get involved, especially if we get involved in talking about how we can do it better. It also helps your brand. You become a thought leader overnight without realizing it, just by having an opinion. especially if you learn to make your opinions all inclusive. And that means you don't say sexist things about women, what you don't intend to do. But, I catch myself when I do the doctor on the airplane moment, when I'm telling that in a story, I'll say, well, I believe a doctor on an airplane, I always mention he. It's like, so we often do. I think when you become aware of how you say everything, you use this language of inclusivity, and it's kind of like the opposite of the punishing God theory. Everything is everybody. The bridge is built all the way to everybody. When you incorporate that into your language, it is a powerful marketing tool and a powerful alignment component inside and outside your company. I don't know where I was going with that, but was I answering a question? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Brian.
No, you're good.
Oh. No, I specifically was asking where people can find you, but I
Yeah, so that's it. I mean, I do a lot of stuff. I love it. I love doing these podcasts, and I love it. I don't know where I'm answering right now, but yeah, I love the interaction. So I'm inviting interaction. I'm saying it helps my brand, it helps your brand, and it helps us actually move the dial to cause. We're able to, as roofers across the country, over 200 of us now have adopted all the Ronald McDonald houses, and it's because we're talking about it, and now we create this new movement, and that gives us power, and it gives us pride, a good pride. As we know ourselves better and we see ourselves higher, we know these are the hands that protect everything in this country and protect everything that you love and all the families. We keep you safe and dry. Yeah. Now there's like a component to it, and it starts right here by how we commune on social media. That's what you guys are doing too. So I appreciate it, man.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks again for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, Charles.
We'll
do it again.
We'll let you get back to figuring out how to manage in this pandemic.
And, we're figuring it out day by day, but we're being authentic and present in the moment, and we're opening our kimono. Hey, we're trying this. That's what gives us power. We're vulnerable in the moment. Now's the time to be vulnerable in the moment. That's how millennials will believe. That's how they'll stay. That's how we keep our people. All right. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Charles.
Yep. Have a good one. Hey, thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.